Okay, we'd like to call this meeting of the DPW and Fire Station Building Committee to order on Thursday, July 17th. We have a couple things on the agenda. I want to note that we have obviously Taylor McDonald from Pomeroy Associates, the four members of the committee, plus Bob Versichini, who's on via Zoom, Sean Schmiegel from KVA Architects, and Brian McCluskey from Weston Sampson. And we have the Fire Chief, Jack Lynn, and John Stone from DPW here at the table, and hidden in the seats, Brian McLaughlin and Jared Driscoll from DPW and Fire Station respectively. And you guys are from Weston Sampson, right? I know Elena?
And Tyler.
And Tyler. Okay, great, thank you. And just before I forget, I want to thank Kevin Tocci for helping us set up the taping and the Zoom. So a couple of quick administrative things off the top. We had some minutes from February 7th and February 21st that I distributed. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by, who's that, Derek?
Sure.
Seconded by Derek. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Bob, and all. Thank you. And then we had several vouchers since our last payment, many of which are coming from the work that's been performed, moving the DPW equipment over to the North School. So Derek, you want to just give us kind of a summary where we are?
Yep, we've received invoices from Smithers, John Holdley and Sons, Glen LaPointe, Ockers Technology, Project Dog Inc., M&T Pest Control, and Triumph Modular. All of these have been verified, submitted, and should, if not already paid, be paid out in the next week.
Wonderful. I appreciate all the work you're doing with that, Derek. I know there's a lot of stuff coming in. Can we just take a motion to ratify the payment of those, all of the invoices that Derek has been handling?
I'll so move that.
Thanks. Second. Gordon and Kevin, thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. No correspondence that I know of. I do want to just note that the KBA passed around or sent around a proposal for the construction sign that they're going to post on Central Street, so people know what's going on. If you haven't been by Central Street, all of the DPW buildings are now gone. They've been demolished, and we're also working on the right side of the police station, putting in the new driveway, the fuel station, and getting ready for the salt shed. So there'll be a sign being posted. We've all seen it and approved it, so that should be being erected, in the next several weeks. Moving on, we'll do a quick, just an update to the committee as to what's been going on. There's been a lot of activity. We've been having a lot of work meetings on a
weekly basis.
I was going to say almost more than a weekly basis. Yesterday, on Tuesday, we had 3 meetings in one day. So there's a lot of action going on. But Taylor, if you could give us a kind of a high-level view of how things are going. Now, phase 1, for those at home, is the part of the project that's putting in the new roadway or / driveway to the right of the police station, the new fuel station, and the salt shed. Phase 2 is everything essentially to the left of the police station, which will be the construction of the new DPW building and the new fire station, and all the appurtenance improvements around there. So let's talk about phase 1 first.
Sure. So phase 1, I'd say, is pretty much over the hump now of the soils issue that we encountered, and it was definitely an unforeseen condition there. There was test pits dug, numerous locations, and just what we found there was dumping that was happening on neighbor's property, or really just some buried crap. The best way to put it. Tires, metal, refrigerators, refrigerant lines, a little bit of everything. So that cleanup process is quite strict when you're dealing with soils. Every single load that comes out of the ground basically has to be tested before it's brought to a disposal facility. So it's really a hand-in-hand process that works between Weston & Sampson's LSP, licensed site professional, and the contractor's licensed site professional. And really all that paperwork is done, 1, because it's required by law, by the state, but also 2, to keep the town safe and protected, so that something's not going somewhere that it shouldn't, and that liability comes back to the town. So the last, I'll say, just kind of big picture, the last piles, 250 cubic yards of piles, we had well over 20 cubic yards of piles. And to put that in perspective, just to move 4 of those 250-yard cubic piles takes 55 trucks running for 8 hours a day to get them off site. So you can imagine just a loop of 4 trucks running for 8 hours. It's 55 truckloads to get rid of 4 piles. So it's a lot of work, and that's just 4. And we had over 20. I think we had 27 at one point. So the last, piles that are leaving the site left this week. The plan of attack with these piles is to try to keep as much of the dirt on site, the piles on site. Any pile that goes off site is very expensive to dispose of because of how it was classified based on the analytical testing. So that being said, we're using a lot of those existing piles in as backfill behind the salt shed. We're using it on berms. We're using it. We're losing some below some roadways. Really anywhere we can. We've asked the contractor. The contractor has been nice enough. Actually, we found some pockets of sand out around the salt shed and then up towards the front of the site. All that's been hogged out. They've taken that sand for free, and we're using those voids now to fill back up with the bad material, as we'll call it. So
The clean bad material.
clean bad material, it's bad.
Meaning you can't use it for construction.
Correct. Yeah, and it's not like it's hazardous waste.
Right.
It's high in plastics, or it's high in PCBs, or it's high in a number of things, but it's not like petroleum based hazardous waste or anything like that. So
Can I just add?
Yeah.
Just so it's clear to the viewers at home. The things that we found buried out there were not the product of the recent DPW. They haven't been hiding things
correct.
out there.
Yeah, I should have said that.
It's something that was done literally 40, 50, 60 years ago. We did do a lot of test pits out there because we knew there was some things buried out there. One of the things I think that caught us by surprise was right when this project was starting, as many people know, the town was able to purchase the rundown house next to the police station, which added on to our lot and allowed us to do more things, to relocate the fuel station and the salt shed and all. That was private property, and it was a tree lot out back. We did do some test samples out there, didn't really hit anything that worried about us, and those trees looked to be 40 years old plus. Come to find out, apparently, wasn't there, the town was actually filling some area on the private property. So we had to remove any sort of the quote unquote dirty fill. I want to commend the phase 1 contractors. I think Dan Dell, who is the site contractor, and APC, who is the general, have been, I think, extremely cooperative, trying to keep our costs down, reuse soils where we could, and I appreciate all their efforts. We do have, we shifted money around to kind of cover these costs. It did slow us down a little bit because of the testing that we had to do before you could take soils off, but they've been doing it in a very orderly manner. And even right now, the relationship between the phase 1 contractor and phase 2 contractor, I think, is very cooperative, working very well.
Yeah, so that's very key. And obviously, if we found a lot of this material before we went out to bid, this cleanup would have been in the bid, and your bid number would have been that much higher. And I honestly think the way that we've been dealing with the soils is actually the most cost effective, because we're tracking it on T&M, time and material. So we're not asking them for a lump sum to do this big cleanup back there. We're actually tracking truckload and truckload, and so we're only paying for really what goes off the site, what gets moved around. So I think it's worked very well so far. And again, the idea is just to keep that path going forward. So the coordination between the phase 1 and phase 2 contractor has gone great. The plan all along was to have phase 1 done and gone before phase 2 started. The soils did slow everything down. So we're looking at a rough completion for phase 1 around September, October. And phase 2 started right after the 4th of July. So, and they've started hot and heavy. Luckily, we have a great phase 2 contractor as well, one that our team has worked with and the design team has worked with too, and is currently working with. So there's relationships there already built. So when phase 2 came on, we were able to get into an agreement pretty quickly of how we can help each other. Phase 1 and phase 2 can help each other, how we can work around the site. There was piles that, because we just had no space, that were sitting on the areas of the foundation for the new DPW. Those piles have since been moved. So everybody's getting, playing along in the sandbox, quite literally. well together. So it's been going well. If you drive past the site, you'll see that the DPW buildings are down. The only building that's not down right now is one of the existing salt sheds that's housing the salt until our new salt shed is done, and then the salt will get moved out to the new salt shed, and there'll be a final demolition for that building. So they've already started to dig foundations for the fire department side. Things are moving quite good and quickly on our phase 2 program. They haven't showed any signs of slowing up, and again, I think it speaks to the fact of the coordination that's going out there on a daily basis between both contractors, between our team, between the town, who has been a great help. And anytime we need something moved or coordination with utilities, and obviously the design team. So I think the town should really be happy with the team that they have working out there now. The project is moving along well.
And for the viewers at home, Taylor and Pomeroy Associates is the town's project manager. They're our professional helpers who are there, eyes on every single day, advising us, working with the architects and engineers. And I understand you brought another guy on board who's going to be on site again to add to the number of eyes on site for the town of Abington. And he's an Abington resident.
Correct. Yep.
That's David.
David Ambrose. Yeah. So
we welcome David on board.
Yep. Thank you.
And unless there's anything else to be said in those general terms about phase 1 or any questions, I just wanted to just give an update on the North School. Before we could rip down anything at Central Street, we had to move everything over to North School, which is our temporary storage area while we're doing the new construction. I know you guys, the DPW is under the gun to move every single thing you owned, but I think you were successful in doing it.
Yes.
I appreciate all the work you guys did. And I think, we did send out letters to all of the neighbors that surrounded the property to let them know that this was coming and that, but if you do have any issues or questions, feel free to call the DPW office. Did you guys have any concerns or anything? Everything's pretty much done now, right? I think
Everything's done. We just don't have the camera system up yet, but
Okay.
we're working on that.
most of our invoices, the costs for that are now, I think,
Complete.
done.
No, there's gonna be one more bill from Suzer Electric when he has to do the wiring.
Okay.
Because,
So-
but we don't need to do that till the weather starts to change.
Wonderful. So I think that's all we need to know about North School.
Have we ever received a Sousa Electric invoice?
Should have, I sent one last week, it was for like $1,200 for wiring up the trailer.
From Sousa Electric?
Yep.
If it's, we'll forward
Yeah,
it.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
And I will say too, we carried about $200,000 for the relocation to North School. We're not even halfway through that yet, so still plenty of money to cover your expenses for rental fees and everything. My guess will be under budget on that line item.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That much.
And we'll have some expenses to move things back eventually,
Yeah.
especially the Connex boxes and all. But again, thank you to the DPW guys for all that work and coordination, squeezing that in between all your other stuff you're doing. Moving on to the agenda, just a general budget update as to where we are, especially with the phase 1, as it's coming closer to an end. Taylor?
Yeah, so with the phase 1 construction, we have had 3 change orders to date. And we're putting together our 4th change order at this point. So all the money at this point has come from contingency. We've been able to keep moving. We did start with a pretty good contingency here. So our change orders 1 through 3, and these numbers are 100% to deal with the soils cleanup. We've spent about $630,000 on those soils, and we have a change order that's coming for change order 4 in the neighborhood of $400,000. Again, soil cleanup. So that's been the bulk of really what we've had to use the contingency for at this point. So our contingency is still safe, but we are expecting some more soil costs coming in the near future. We'll track those. We'll add those in update here. So we're okay. We're okay. I'd say we need to watch it very closely, which we are doing. Obviously, I'm keeping in contact with the town manager on all these costs as they come up. So,
Kevin?
Pardon me if I could. On the phase 1 construction, that figure that you're carrying here, is that inclusive of the fuel island? The amount for borrowing on the fuel island?
Yes, it is.
Okay, what, if at all possible, and I understand the overall, could you just, in the next report, just break down the funding sources? Because if somebody were to look at this on their own and see, the total amount that's there, they're saying that that was over and above what was appropriated, but in fact it isn't, because there are several different funding sources right now. One, there was existing money that was carried over and previously authorized by town meeting. There was an overall 1.2 million for borrowing for the fuel island, which services the entire town. So if you could just do that, if you don't mind, so it's at least in the record, if you.
Yeah, I could break that out. Yeah, so our total budget, the 43.2 million, is inclusive of those two appropriations, with the town appropriated for this project, and along with the fuel island monies.
And there was,
And the leftover, yeah.
yeah, there was $500,000 or $600,000 that was left over from the previous committee work.
Correct, yeah, that is all accounted for in here, and I can definitely break out,
Yeah, if you could just.
some of those items.
That's our limit, that's all we have to spend.
Exactly,
so,
yeah.
Period. Again, Orin, I appreciate you for keeping tabs on this, and Derek for the work you're doing. Also keeping tabs, you got kind of two sets of eyes watching the numbers.
And the only reason I ask that is for auditing purposes, and I'm a stickler on that, is that if the auditors look at this, they're gonna be, what happened? If it's right in front of them, it won't be an issue.
Yep. Yeah, and all these numbers are in concert too with the town accountant too. So that's how I built the budget, obviously. So.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, the town had appropriated $1.2 million to put in a new fuel island, whether or not this construction project moved forward, because we wanted to remove the old fuel island that has underground tanks. There's no evidence of leaking, but it's old, and so the town had voted to build a new one. When this project got approved, we were able to incorporate it all and located it so that it was part of this project.
Part of phase one.
Yeah, part of phase one, and so the fuel island and the driveway to the fuel island is all, part of that 1.2 million, so, to Kevin's point, yeah, we'll show it so that we can always allocate it, moving forward. Any questions on phase one, or budget questions or anything like that? They are expecting, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin or Derek, we were at one of the work meetings. Right now, they are putting in they're bringing in the good materials to put under the salt shed floor. You can't just, when we say unusable soils, some of it's just because it has organics in it.
Unusable from a structural perspective.
Exactly. If you're building a house or any building, you dig a hole and you want to pour a foundation, you can't just put the same soils back into the hole under the foundation. You have to bring in a gravelly, sandy type of fill so the building is sturdy.
Correct.
And that's what we're doing now, is putting the good fill and using some of the sandy fill for the area underneath the salt shed. They're working on filling that in. And that will then allow them to start building basically the foundation, so to speak, of the salt shed. And then that metal structure will be delivered in several weeks, and we'll see that start to take shape.
Correct.
And the fuel island itself is partially in place, and that's gonna be taking shape over the next several weeks. So we're gonna start seeing things coming out of the ground there on the campus.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note too that not only is all these teams along with the LSP, but it seems like at least every couple days we're having a call with the geotechnical engineer. So they're really in charge of how the soils get placed, what can be used, what can't be used. So there's multiple layers of oversight here that the geotechnical engineer is on site as the backfill is ongoing. They're checking compaction. We have UTS as our material testing company that's on site that is doing compaction testing. So there's multiple layers here just to make sure that the town is getting what they deserve and are protected here. So the process is going as it should.
I've never learned so much about soils and classifications of soils and permitting of soils in my life, and hopefully I'll never use this information again. Then moving on, we'll talk about phase two and where we are there. We did talk already about demolition, but if you want to, Taylor, give us an update.
Sure.
Report on how that's going.
So again, phase two started right after the 4th of July. They did a demo of the salt shed that was really the main salt shed at the time. That came down. And then what we had to do was do some asbestos or ACM removal at the front DPW building. That took only a few days. There wasn't a lot of asbestos in that building. So while that process is going on, there's an air monitor here. The asbestos consultant is on site to make sure that everything is up to par and meeting DEP standards. So that was all completed. They got the clean bill of health on the building. So demo, went forward on that front building, and yesterday I think was the final piece that kind of came down
Yes.
on that front building. So demo is complete, except for, like I said, one structure that's just kind of holding sand right now. Foundation excavation has started. They started to do some exploratory work on soils. Again, we have. We're hoping no bad soils. The part of the contract goes a lot further on phase 2 in terms of what types of soils are on site. So we know there's 4 classifications of soils on phase 2. So there's testing that needs to take place. The contractor has started to do some of that. They got their fence up, their straw wattle up, for their stormwater pollution prevention plan. They're getting their paperwork in. Submittals have been flying. The team's answering submittals. We're meeting weekly at this point. So a lot of progress in a short amount of time on phase 2.
And again, for any viewers at home, the site does have a construction security fence surrounding it now, and it's there for a reason. If anyone's curious about the project, we invite you to take photos from the other side of Central Street or from the police station parking lot, but please do not enter the site for liability purposes. The contractor is 100% responsible for what goes on in there, so please stay outside of the fence. I wanted to get a quick update. Two things I want to talk about. Bob Persicchini had submitted a memo with some of the things he was looking at on the documents and making sure certain things were updated or included in our construction documents. And I also wanted to ask Derek or the chief to give us the, I think, good news about the E911 grant that we had applied for through your department. So why don't we start with E911?
Steve Hook, who's the director of Holbrook Communications, does our dispatching. He's been very successful with grants in the past. He filed the E911 grant for us to cover communications equipment pretty much for the whole station. And that was mapped out kind of what we're looking for. And he notified us about 3 weeks ago that we were successful. So we're going to be getting a grant for $750,000 for the equipment that's going to be needed for the fire station communications wise. Derek and another member of our department, as well as a deputy, are really focusing in on certain things that we're going to need going forward and trying to get that going. But that's great news.
It's absolutely great news. It's critical to this project. For a lot of, I just want people, the taxpayers, to know that we're trying to spend their money as wisely as possible, and we're trying to get every grant as possible. And here's number one evidence of $750,000 that helps pay for all of those E911 related technology throughout the fire station. So congrats and thank you to all the guys in the fire station who worked so hard with them. You guys have been keeping us updated, and then we finally just got the good news, you said about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So that helps us try to preserve our contingency and hopefully, just try to finish our project on time and on budget. Knock on wood. Derek, do you want to add anything about that?
No, we're just doing a really good job of making sure that we're gonna get all the up-to-date, most modern 911 technologies that are out there. This grant's gonna cover just about everything.
And that segues right into Bob Persicchini, because you had a question. I talked to you by phone when you told me you weren't going to be able to be at this meeting. You're here via Zoom. You had a question or a comment about the coordination of some of the technology and such. Am I right?
Yes. Dirk and I spoke about this previously. Just wanted to confirm that any of the equipment that they're buying, that it aligns with what was specified by the consultant engineers, so that it works with the engineers.
Sean Schmiegel, I'm assuming you guys have gone through this in other projects. with the same type of E911 grant, so there is that inherent
So
coordination?
we have what's called conduits and raceways built into the project. So this grant will, they'll be pulling wiring, they'll be pulling, the devices will be provided by the E911 grant. So it includes, like the station alerting system that Derek was just talking about. It includes security cameras, access control, so keypads on the doors. It also includes the generator for the fire station. So really what it came down, not come down to, so there was no products that we specified, but all of the infrastructure is in place for this vendor, Steve Hook's vendor, that we've worked with on, I'm currently working with him on 5 other projects. So it's all there. We have a follow-up meeting scheduled for 2 Mondays from now, the 28th of July, to meet and sit down and go through those specifics, and to talk about the type of equipment that they're anticipating. Possibly look at not alternate locations, but either maybe, just to reconfirm some of the previous locations that are identified in the contract documents. Anything needs to change, we can modify it before.
You mean like locations of video screens or
Exactly,
terminals
yeah.
or things like that?
Speakers, so it also includes like the PA system within the building. So we have all speaker locations above ceilings, some wall-mounted items, devices in certain locations. So again, it's all in the base bid, with the exception of the equipment.
And the deputy chief and I are visiting some of these projects, so we're gonna be looking at some of the most up-to-date stuff that's coming out, just to confirm the product types. And then once we have this meeting in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to take that information and work with the architects on making sure that the raceways and runways are in the correct locations. So it should be a smooth transition.
And kind of related to that note, I was informed that the town of Hingham's fire station is gonna have an open house on Monday, August 4th.
Yes.
For anyone who's interested, or if you can't make it that day, I'm sure we could organize through their department to take a visit. And what's the other one you're working on? Stoughton?
Stoughton, we just finished up.
Stoughton is finished, that's the one we're gonna check out. We've already visited Hingham and Stoughton, but Stoughton recently got the updated 911 stuff installed, so we're gonna go look at that.
Trooper.
Yeah, so Stoughton went through the same exact process that we're doing here. So we expect to go smoothly.
Great. Bob, do you have anything to add about it? Bob Priscini has an HVAC and electrical background in a rather large company in Boston, so that's why I defer to him, because I don't speak electrics or anything like that. Anything else, Bob?
No, I guess, will the shop drawings on the generator be forwarded to the electrical engineer for review also?
Yes, no, so any product that is gonna be supplied by the 911 grant vendor will be reviewed, yes. Cause we have to review against the automatic transfer switch and, the switch gear and all that stuff, so yes, but we did
Right.
provide in the grant request, or Steve Hook provided, data on, the size of the generator that's necessary, and so forth. But yes, no, the engineer will need to review that against the contract.
The plan, Bob, would be
Right.
to get this information from our visits and try to get it all confirmed in a couple weeks, so that way everything kind of meshes together. But we're gonna go put eyes on some of the most up-to-date stuff and try to get specific models and brands. And then we'll finalize that in a couple weeks.
Excellent. The only other item I had is I did issue a update to the previous comments that were made on the CDs as it relates to the conformed set. There's a handful of items that still needed some clarification. I know, Sean, that you have sent that off to the consultants for their input. So if you got any questions, please reach out.
Yeah, so we did receive those late last night. I'm happy to go through them with you one by one, not necessarily right now, but I'll distribute those when I get back to the office, Bob. If you have any questions, we can have a phone call, set up a meeting with the engineers and so forth. But simply everything that you had questions on or clarifications on are there. Are in the documents. I can just point them to you where they are.
The most up-to-date set of plans we recently received, I've gone through about
prints.
3/4 of that set of plans and compared them with your notes, and so far everything's checking out. But it's a big set of plans, so I haven't finished it yet. I'm working on it.
And Bob, again, I want to personally thank you for all the detail you've done. I mean, the amount of these memos that you've sent and the details that's involved is frankly incomprehensible to most of us. But your expertise is greatly appreciated as a volunteer for the town. So thanks for all of your time you're putting into this. And I'm sure you and KBA can follow up with some of this and let us know if you see any issues we need to discuss as a committee, okay?
Will do. Thank you.
You're the best. One thing that we alluded to earlier too with phase 2, Taylor had mentioned that they are starting the foundation work for both buildings and including the fire station. One of the things that the phase 2 contractor, which is GNR Construction out of Hanover, what they wanted to do is they want to remove the old fuel island before they start putting the foundation for the fire station in, because it's relatively close. And so they didn't want to start pounding the ground and shaking the ground, putting in the foundation while there were fuel tanks nearby. So they're going to be removing that fuel station as early as next week. So for that reason, again, folks in TV land, you'll be seeing all of the town vehicles, fire engines, police cars, DPW trucks, senior center van, will be fueling up elsewhere for the next 6 weeks or so, maybe to the middle of September, a little bit earlier, while we are decommissioning the existing fuel island and then building and finishing the new fuel island. So just so people know that, the town manager is trying to finalize those details. I think we're leaning towards making a contract with Sunoco at 18 and 139 for one of the main reasons is it's in Abington and it has a separate diesel fuel island. It doesn't have a canopy that would limit the size of trucks that would be there. That's being finalized, but just again, for people at home, you're gonna see the town vehicles no longer using the Central Street site, at least for the next couple of weeks. They'll be using a private site and they'll move back to the new fuel island when that's completed.
That was finalized yesterday.
It was?
Yeah.
Great, appreciate it. Any other things with phase 2 or coordination issues at all?
I mean, I can give an update too as well for the civil. So, yes, we went out there the other day after the other meeting for phase 1. They have started foundations for the DPW. We have not finalized the foundations for the DPW yet. They have to submit shop drawings for the pre-engineered metal building, so that's kind of a back and forth. It's different than the fire department. The fire department's conventional, so it's a little bit quicker to come out of the ground, whereas the DPW, you won't see much, and then all of a sudden steel will be up in like 3 days. We did go out and verify that the fuel island, we weren't sure which way the tanks went, so we did verify that it was a little bit closer, because we saw the P-stone that they originally had put around it. Overall, everyone's happy, and hopefully we'll have to witness the infiltration for the test pits and everything, because stormwater on the site was very difficult, so we'll observe all those test pits and everything like that for the infiltration basins.
One item, we just mentioned steel. We did get kind of an informal notice from our contractor that they are concerned about the new tariffs that are being threatened against Canadian steel, and it may affect us for the steel to be used for the fire station. It's not going to affect the DPW building. It's a different type of structure. But we just don't know because, as everyone knows, the threat of tariffs comes on and comes off on a bi-weekly basis. We don't know where it's going, but it is a concern that we're trying to monitor.
But we were carrying in the bid 25%.
Yes, the contractor was anticipating some sort of tariff level. There's threats of it being raised by President Trump, so that difference would be a concern of ours. But let's again hope that things work in our favor. Right?
Correct, yeah, we won't, obviously, nothing's in stone yet, so if the contractor brings us an increase in cost, we'll review it
Yep.
against the contract, review it against the specs, and, if it's a real cost, and, I'll bring it to the town, we can discuss, but if it's something that they should have owned or they should have planned for, then it's on them.
Yep. I just want to make sure the committee is hearing all those little bits and pieces of what we're hearing in different meetings. Most of all the issues that come up are like, we're worried about this, and then they figure a way to resolve it, which is great. So let's hope that continues. Okay, moving on to the fuel island. We had an issue with our fuel island design. We were at one of the work session meetings about a month ago, and the chief leaned over to me and said, "Hey, are we getting a two-sided fuel island, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, we only are building a one-sided fuel island." And we were kind of surprised at that. So we took a look at some of the plans, and yes, the construction plans call for a one-sided fuel island. I think I kind of talked to some of the committee members and the fire department and DPW, and we were all in the assumption that it was a two-sided fuel island, which basically matches what the town has now. I looked back through my plans, our design development plans from January, March, June, showed the two-sided island in the location where the island is now. I did see it then switch, actually, in a meeting in September, there was a site plan showed to us that actually just had a rectangular gray box in that area. It didn't show really what it was, but then soon thereafter, it did show a one-sided fuel station, I'll call it. I looked at what was submitted to the planning board was a site plan showing a one-sided fuel island, but we also showed them elevation and an aerial flyover showing a two-sided fuel island. So there was a big concern for the committee and for the departments because of the maneuverability of our vehicles, especially Tower One, which is a diesel truck that fills up on the driver's side. And I think the thought and the desire was always that they could enter the new driveway off of Central Street and pull up to let's call it the right side of the east side of the fuel island and fuel up and then just kind of loop around the back and come into the fire station from the rear. If we were to only have a one-sided island, we'd be spinning trucks around, and especially even during snowstorms when we have trucks with plows out there, we wanted to have the ability to have a two-sided island. So we did have a meeting out there where KBA and Weston Sampson and the fire department and the DPW and a couple of members of the committee were there to try to figure out what can we do. And I think, well, we can confirm, the way the location of the fuel station structure that's there right now, it's presently in its initial stages, allows us to build that second-sided driveway. What our concern is making sure, though, that the hoses would be able to, connect with trucks on either side of the island. So the fire department did some research and talked to the state fire marshal's office about our ability, could we, instead of having just the standard 10-foot hose, which the standard fuel island has, could we use something more like a 50-foot hose or something like that? There are regulations that would prohibit that, so that longer hose option was basically eliminated. So it came down to, are we gonna live with the one-sided fuel island, or do we want to essentially, I guess, issue a change order for the addition of the east side entrance to allow town vehicles to get onto either side so that you're not spinning trucks around in the middle of a snowstorm or coming back from a fire call or things like that. To some people, it might sound like it's a minor detail, but in talking to our town departments, this is something with operational efficiency for the next 50 years. And it just caught the committee by surprise. And so we expressed our concern. It was not known to us why it switched over in the final plans, when it switched over, kind of know. I mean, sometime in September-ish or whatever. When we went to the Conservation Commission in June, the plans that were submitted to the Conservation Commission did show the two-sided island. And in a weird way, good, because they approved the project based on a two-sided island, so we won't have to go back to them. We may have to just submit this updated revised fuel island plan to the planning board, because the planning board approved a site plan with a one-sided island. And shame on me, I didn't notice it. When we did the presentation to the planning board, the site plan showed a one-sided island, but as I mentioned, the video and the elevation showed a two-sided island. And I think just general consensus, I'll let the fire department or DPW speak for themselves. I think we all thought we were getting we have a two-sided fuel island now. We thought we were buying a double-sided, two-sided fuel island with a new project. Anything else you want to fill in the blanks with there?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, Sean. I'm the furthest thing from an engineer, and if I missed it along the way, but my thought process was that we were gonna be replacing what we have with the same thing, not go backwards. And we did all kinds of research, you know, I went to the city fire marshal's office, I had to delay things for a while because I wanted to make sure we could get everything right, and possible solutions, and because of Mass General laws and also with NFB, you know, National Fire Protection Standards, we can't do it. We can't do anything otherwise, so it's either leave it the way it is, which, as you said, for the next 50 years, operationally, it's gonna be a problem, or we can fix it now. And that's, but I think you pretty much nailed on all of it, that it's operationally, the best thing was the two-sided island, and, you know, however we got there, we've gotta go forward.
I know Derek and I have done a lot of research and watched videos of old meetings and looked up old plans and all, and you know, at first I was really upset how we got here. Now I'm more concerned about how do we move forward. But Derek, I wanted you to, you know, put in your 2 cents with what the importance of it to you.
Just like everybody's saying, we always anticipated a two-sided, and there just must have been some sort of confusion or mispoint. I feel pretty guilty myself that I didn't pick up on some of it, because most of the drawings and renderings that I've looked at always showed two-sided. It just kind of seemed one of those things that I didn't have to focus too much on, because I just always assumed it was what we were gonna get. But going back in the research, I tried to find, you know, where we were specific about two-sided, but it's a lot of information to go through, but we're trying our best. But at the end of the day, as we discussed at that meeting that we had outside, let's just try to focus on how we're gonna get past this and fix the issues that we have. So hopefully we can discuss that in depth today and try to come up with some solutions or ideas. I've come up with a couple thoughts, and hopefully when we get to the point to discuss it, we can try to figure out what's gonna be the most cost-effective for us.
Yeah, Derek and I have been talking about the specific design of the fuel station and where the dispenser hoses would be and all, and we can talk about that in detail. But so 2 things to look at is the revised layout, the ability to add that second driveway, we'll call it the east side driveway, which requires us to move 1 electrical box that just has all the electrical connections there, which I understand Weston Sampson was able to confirm pretty quickly that that would not be a major issue. We do have a design that shows.
Draft design.
Right, a draft design that shows.
There's even been some changes, I think, already to it, yeah, so.
So it shows, for lack of a better word, it'll fit, right? And again, Dandel, the site contractor, has been great, and they're ready to just start going on it, but the committee needs to basically take a vote to authorize them. I hate to jump around, but also for the fuel island itself. So essentially, we have 2 tanks, a diesel tank, a 6,000 gallon diesel tank, and a 6,000 gallon gasoline tank. And what we want to make sure is that we can have accessibility to either tank from each side of the island. And I know there's been a couple of variations. The one design had there's basically a maintenance stairway between them, so you can climb up to the top of the tanks for any sort of maintenance in the future. They were talking about maybe relocating that and putting the dispensers, the hoses, whatever you want to call them. There's 2 different versions, whether they're pedestal mounted or whether they're actually mounted, I think it's called shelf mounted on the tank itself. And we want to look at the cost and the configuration to make sure. And whatever the hose is, it can't go out beyond the concrete pad under fire regulations, the limiting, long story. So we're limited to the length of our hoses, so it's going to be critical where we put the actual dispensers on this new island, right? Do you guys have a new?
Yeah, let me say something. So,
Please.
no, I hear you, I appreciate it, and yeah, you know, sorry that, you know, things went awry, so, just because, you know, we're here for you guys for this project, we want to see it through. Tyler is one of our fuel island engineers, which is why he's here today. And I know you guys have a draft, those weren't perfect. He has updated layouts that we've been working on since the other day, hard copies only, I guess. So we'll lay those out, but yeah.
I can get a digital copy.
Yeah, so we can look at those. So I think he's gone in depth with the contractor for the fuel line, which is what, Green Site Services. So we can talk about, potentially adding a dispenser on each side, so that way you can access them from each side, because once again, some vehicles have them on the left side and some have them on the right side. So it is all over the place. And then I think there was a limit, with the 18 feet on the hose with the retractor, but he knows more, and I'll let him kind of patch in.
I mean, if we have dispensers on both sides, they don't need 18 feet.
Okay,
Correct.
right.
18 feet would work.
So I haven't seen these new ones, so from what we saw as the draft, I figured I only see really two options. And I guess the question is gonna be, which one's gonna be the most cost effective? So the two options that I came up with, and since not seeing these yet, would be either to keep, the way the draft is, it has one set of stairs in between, which makes it not possible to go from one side to the other in between, but other renderings I've seen had two sets of stairs where the tanks were farther apart. So if the tanks are close together like this, then we would have to see if putting 4 shelf-mounted dispensers, 2 on both sides, would be more cost-effective, or would separate into tanks a little bit more and putting 2 dispensers in the middle that can be accessed on both sides, similar to what we have now. Which one would be more cost-effective for us? That's kind of the most
So like.
basic. Move the tanks apart so the dispensers could be in the middle, so that way you can access both dispensers on both sides. That way we don't need 4 dispensers, we just need the 2. Or is it cheaper to keep the tanks close together with the stairs and then put 4 shelf-mounted units? So I don't know which one's more cost-effective. Because we haven't poured any pads, the only things that are down that might have to move if the tanks have to separate would be the outside bollards.
Yeah.
Before we get into this, one second, I just have to say for the record, I don't know how and why it changed, at what point it changed, but the committee never voted for it to change, and I know there's been discussion like, well, it always was a one-sided. That's not what it was shown to us when it moved over to that location. Again, I'm not looking for you to tell me who the person was that changed it at all, but if there was a reason to change it, I think it should have been brought to the committee, because I think we would have told you, don't change it. So it kind of made us, we were talking like, what else has changed that we don't know about? And I'm calming down about it more, but it was really nerve-wracking to us, and especially to the people who work there, that we had no idea this thing changed until the bollards went up and we saw where things were. So I just want to say that for the record, and hopefully this issue doesn't come up again. Kevin?
Yeah, and I think we have to go one step further. We're at a meeting, we need answers. And I guess I would like, for the record, for the minutes, how did we get here? I think before we start talking about remedies, we need answers as to, based on what has been articulated, how did we end up where we are today? Clearly the representations were made to us, or at least to me, that we were gonna have a 2-sided island for the reasons that have been stated, and then we end up with a 1-sided. So the question becomes is, where along the process was the breakdown? And I think we have to start there first, get your answers to that, to make a determination what, if anything, the town may or may not do. So from this standpoint, I guess I would like to hear your explanation as to how we got here, and then we can get into the remedy factor. But with that said, I want you to understand I'm going to be looking for, whatever you say, I want to know the cost factor, what it was, what's the cost factor or the estimate for the single island that was carried in the bid, and what would have been the cost factor for the double island, and the engineering to go along, the design cost to go along with that, so I can articulate in my own mind, are there damages that we should be pursuing? And I don't know the answer to that question until I've heard you. And if so, how much? And is there a remedy in terms of the design? So I guess I throw the floor to you and ask for your explanation as to how we got here.
But yeah, my thought, and I've gone through a lot of the documents too as well, is as we further furthered the design mainly for the special permit, which included stormwater calculations, is I think where it got pushed when we started doing more of the vehicle layouts. We pushed it over to the right and we needed to reduce the impervious area of the site. One of the things too, if you noticed, it's across from the police station driveway. And, you know, I think there were concerns originally, we all thought that that road was gonna be a one-way loop, and it's a dual loop now, so people can kind of go both ways. So that's where it kind of got pushed over, in my opinion, for the special permit with the impervious calcs. And that's where I think it happened.
So the question becomes is, when you say the impervious calcs, is that was what you were going to the planning board before with those plans, or?
Yes, we went with the plans where it was trying to show as much grass and non-impervious and make sure that all the turn radiuses worked on the site.
Okay, so at that point, was there any communication done with the committee or somebody to indicate you were moving that over?
That I don't think it was clearly articulated at that point.
What would the cost have been based on your estimates? What was the figure that we were carrying, I guess, based on the estimators for the one-sided island?
So with the site work, we had given that number about 1.25 million. That includes.
So, sorry, so basically in our design development estimate, second design development estimate, we provided a $750,000 allowance for the station itself. With the site work, it's roughly another $200,000, you know, the roadway work, you know, and so forth. So it's roughly $950, $1 million, about $1 million.
For one side.
For the single.
Yeah.
Okay.
Preliminary discussions, I think, you know, what I can't remember if it was just internally or whatnot. That's the 1.25 for the two-sided, and then roughly about twice as amount, $350,000 for the site work. So it's roughly about 1.5 for a two-sided. So, you know, looking at between roughly $500,000 difference, not only for the station but the site work of the two. Based on, you know, just some initial allowances that we were carrying in our second design development estimate, experience from Weston and Sampson allocations for one versus two-sided. So again, you know, I think big picture is about, you know, obviously every site is a little bit different. This one's different.
All right, so those are based on estimates. Is that inclusive of any design?
So design's a little bit, I would say I don't want to speak for Weston Sampson, but I think the allowance on top of the budget estimates for these two, you know, I think we had rough discussions. You know, it's probably, there's a lot of similarities between the two. Obviously, there's a lot of engineering, there's a lot of testing. You know, I think it's roughly between a $25,000 add, if you will.
In addition to what you do of the.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Right.
it's a little challenging just because, you know, if it was a separate project on its own, it's obviously a much larger project. You know, but when you're all inclusive, doing the whole project as a whole, you know, there's all efficiencies from a design standpoint. So.
All right, so what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that to go to the double-sided based on your estimates, and then I'm gonna ask you the question on the site prep, roughly $500,000, is that correct?
Correct.
Exclusive of any design money?
Correct.
That's based on that. Am I correct in assuming that when you made the switch to incorporate the impervious, you made no communication with the town? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know if it was clearly articulated. I know we went through the plans prior to special permit. And I don't have the exact meeting that we met. Let me just.
I mean, I'll take a look.
I guess here's my problem.
Yeah.
I've been doing stuff like this for a lot of years. and I'll use labor, labor negotiations as an example. If you negotiate at the table for something, and then one side slips in something at the end, statutorily, that's called, there's no meeting of the minds. So that portion, and I had a case where we had that happen, and the arbitrator ruled that it was not enforceable because there was no meeting of the minds. You didn't articulate across the table as to, what your intent was. In this particular case, in my opinion, I feel as though there was no meeting of the minds. I think regardless of how it ended up, the fact remains is that we, right or wrong, were under the impression it would be a double-sided island. It ended up not being that way. So the question becomes from, I guess, a legal standpoint, was there a meeting of the minds, as I go back to articulate that this is what the town was getting? I can make a case that there wasn't. I'm sure other people can make a case that there was. So I guess therein lies our dilemma. So now let's go to the additional cost. Of the $500,000, and you mentioned the site prep, and I know that's only an estimate. In your opinion, based on the contractor that's out there now, do you see the site prep going that high?
No, it wouldn't go as high as 500,000 additional.
Okay, so the bottom line, I guess here's where I'm coming from right now. I think the design, if there's any cost to that, somebody's gonna have to eat it, and it's not gonna be the town. That's number one. Number two, in terms of the site work, if it's not gonna be more, if in your estimation it's gonna be less than, then the facility itself, what are we talking about for additional cost, if any? And I don't know, maybe that's a question for you. Are the tanks in such a way that they have to be repositioned, repurchased? I'm unaware of any of that part, so.
No, there should be no changes to the tanks.
Is it Terry, is it?
Tyler.
Tyler, can you come up to one of the microphones just so we can help record you?
So just so I understand, so the net, I guess I want to boil it down to the bottom. What is the potential additional cost to the town? Am I correct in saying, based on what you just said, that if the tanks, if there's going to be no appreciable change to the tanks, I'm assuming, and again, correct me, that won't be an additional cost to the town, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the only thing we have on the table right now is the site work, is that correct?
Correct. I'm sure there is some configuration in
Mine,
this, and there's some electrical work.
That's fine.
yes.
That's
But the biggest portion is the
Peanuts.
site work, yeah.
So the site work, so the additional, if we were to approve a change order for the site work, it would be,
250,000.
okay. So the bottom line, if we were to approve a change order to affect a double-sided, and I'm gonna repeat myself because I want it understood and I want it on the record. So the bottom line cost for us, the town, if we were to approve a change order for a double-sided island, it's not gonna affect the cost of the tanks. The only cost is going to be the
Site work and
The site-
associated electrical.
work.
And if we add dispensers.
The dispensers, yeah.
Yeah,
So
all right.
That's the,
So we're in that neighborhood. And then the bottom line, again, I would repeat myself, that any design, if there is any design, I don't know, would there be an additional design?
There has been.
Okay.
Yeah, but the design work,
I think
Part of
the
it.
easy way out of this is that if we, so we don't get all tripped up legally and otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, and, it's up to the committee and then ultimately up to the selectmen if we wanted to force the issue. I think the easiest way out of this is an agreement that there's no charge to the town for the design. That if what we're representing is just simply the site work, I think we can see our way out of this without getting too immersed in the legalities. Clearly, as I've said before, I can make a case that we should have been contacted. Clearly the records, get ambiguous, and then you gotta weigh what is the cost of diving into that from a legal standpoint. So I think if we can get an agreement that there'll be no cost to the town for the design, and if we decide we want to go forward with the change order, I think we can resolve this issue today. So I throw that back to you.
I would like to resolve it. We're here to help you. There would be no change. We're here to see this project through, and obviously we're just getting out of the ground. So, we don't want it to be a rocky start because it's going to be a long year and a half. So, no, understood. That's
And
why.
again, for the record, I want to make it abundantly clear because I had a problem with this in the very beginning. And we had a meeting and I articulated this clearly. I want to understand, and I know you people have a lot of other projects. I just got the feeling then, and I'm beginning to get the feeling now, that, oh, yeah, we get to deal with Abington. We're second tier. I just want it understood that you're here working for us and we want your undivided attention. And if anything like this should happen again, we probably won't be so benevolent. So you've got to understand that, we're your client and we expect and demand that you will treat us accordingly. And if there's any change to anything in the future, it has to be communicated immediately. Do we understand that?
Sure.
Okay.
No, that's clear.
Let me just poll Derek, Gordon, Bob. Does everyone agree with what Kevin just said, or have anything you want to add to what Kevin just said?
No, I agree.
I'm in favor of it. Yeah, I agree.
Bob?
I'm in agreement with it.
As am I. Can I ask a question for clarification too? Well, first of all, let me just restate the agreement. The agreement is we're not paying for any additional design fees.
Correct.
Resolve this, right? Yep. We do have to figure, there's a cost to us to pay for the extra driveway, which honestly, fairly, we would be paying for if it was in the drawings.
That is correct. I was going to say that,
Right.
correct.
Yeah.
If it was part of it was not part of the set that the contractor bid on. So
Yeah.
the way that Chapter 149 construction works is, you only get what you bid on and what's part of that set. So the fact that that additional lane is not in our construction documents, you can't, and I guess there's no other better way to put it, but you can't get something for nothing. So you can't ask the design team, even if we think they missed it or however it may be, to pay for something that wasn't part of what was
Which
bid.
I understand, and that's the reason.
It makes sense. We would have been paid $40.
Right.
Exactly.
Tyler, can I ask you, we all kind of glossed over this fuel station because it was just always shown on the plan as a fuel station. Almost to us, it was like, there is a standard type of fuel station, we're gonna put it in here. We thought it was two-sided, it's fine. The current design, the one-sided one, where are the dispensers, what kind of dispensers, what does it look like now?
Yep, so the current design has, they're called Wayne S1. They're fleet dispensers that are mounted right on the side of the tank. We have the two 6,000 gallon two 6,000 gallon tanks, one for gas, one for diesel. And I think they're about 3 feet apart. The dispensers are mounted on the far end of the tanks to allow them to be used at the same time. And then there's a fuel management where they access the fuel right in the middle.
The key fob thing?
Yeah, the key fob. So that's the current layout.
Okay, so then if we were to add a second set of dispensers on the other side, what's the price delta there, or is there none? Is that being absorbed? What are we looking at? We can do that, right? We can
Yeah.
have two dispensers on one tank?
Yep.
Okay.
As far as the price difference goes, I mean, roughly speaking, dispensers are like 25,000 each.
Okay.
So 2 extra dispensers,
And, yeah,
and
those
plus
are-
the electrical work that would have to go with it, so.
Electrical, then there'd be some piping to connect the submersible pumps to the new dispensers. And also, this fuel island does have fire suppression, so there'd be fire suppression added above those dispensers as well.
But we don't know if we need to add those at this point.
If we're putting them over there, I think I mean,
I think we'd have to by code, yeah.
yeah. I think the way forward that I was envisioning is that we would come to an agreement on what that final island is going to look like, and then we can put a package together and send it to the contractor who can then put a price to it. And then, but I can help with coming up with comparing the alternatives to have general, price differences between them.
So, like I said, that boggling my mind on the way to modify this, because I have plans in my pile of drawings over the years that show the 2 tanks with 2 sets of stairs, one for each, and a passageway in between. And then this one shows just the 1 set of stairs that access both tanks. So that's why if it stays in like a tight configuration like this, we would have to add the 2 other dispensers and that extra work. But since we kind of caught this before anything was poured into the ground, if the tanks were separated a little more and either stairs were placed on the outside or on the inside, that the dispensers were centralized so we didn't have to purchase 2 additional dispensers, which one would be the better way to go as far as cost? Because I don't know the cost of the main style dispensers versus the shelf dispensers.
The bigger ones that have 2 hoses on them are much more expensive than the ones that are just mounted on the tank.
Well, they're just the 1 hose per dispenser. So like, if we had 2 dispensers in the center, in between the tanks, one was gas, one was diesel, that hose can go to either side. So you don't need 2 hoses per. It's what we have right now. We have a gas dispenser and a diesel dispenser, both have 1 hose. And we have to walk to one side of the machine to fob in, which we don't care where we have to walk around, so that can go anywhere. To activate whichever dispenser we're gonna use, and then we just take it and we can access it on both sides.
Yeah, I see what you're
If we
saying.
do the 4 dispensers, we still have to go activate it, but then we can access either the gas or diesel on both sides. It's just, now we have 4 different dispensers. I like the simplicity of what we have now and having the 2 in the center that we can access on both sides. But I think that the tanks would actually have to be pushed out a little
The tank
bit
pad
more.
would have to be moved
But the
out.
pad would just have to increase in size slightly, but that hasn't been poured or anything. The only thing in the way would be those 2, I think there's a total of 4 bollards that would have to be shifted out if we had to, because I don't know the code on how close they have to be to the pad or to the ends of the tanks versus the outsides where the vehicles would be. You know what I mean?
I think the
Well,
closest-
you add on, but there's 2 on the outsides of the pad on the
There is.
lengthwise, so if we have to move the tanks out, do those bollards actually have to move? Because is there a distance between bollards and tank?
The minimum distance is 3 feet between bollards and tank.
Gotcha.
I don't know the exact.
I guess that would be the question that I'm looking for to get answered, because
It might
whichever
be-
one's the cheaper option seems like would be the better, but
It might be cheaper to spread them apart and relocate the 2 dispensers in the middle as opposed to, although, I mean, it wouldn't be that much different. Most of the cost is in the site work and in the
Yep.
concrete.
Yeah, we can talk to the vendor too and
yeah.
and
I mean,
get these answers.
my
for you.
opinion, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but for us, I would ideally like the dispensers to be in the center and we could just access them on both sides. That would be,
Are we talking
That's-
shelf dispensers?
they would probably
Mounted on the
be,
inside of the tank.
they could be shelf on the, kind of like, I mean, it's hard to say, but like either shelf dispenser here, or the actual like
Pedestal.
pedestal style, whichever is the most cost effective. A dispenser's a dispenser, it doesn't matter.
As long as the only concern I had, and I talked, Derek and I have been going over some of these details, if we centralize the dispenser in the middle of the island, I just want to make sure that the 10-foot hose is really enough now.
Probably, we'd have to go a little longer.
Exactly, because you got to get off the island, past the bollards to the vehicle. So whether that's 15 feet, 12 feet, whatever, I just want to make sure we don't.
Yeah,
But whatever side you're pulling up on is what we currently do now. That would be the side that you're gonna be accessing. So if it's in the center of the tank, it would have to clear the tank, clear the bollards, and then however far away you're parking the vehicle from the bollards is how far you'd have to reach. So as long as that can fit, then
Yeah, the longest hose allowed by NFPA is 18 feet, so I feel like 18 feet would be more than, like, we wouldn't have.
as long as it doesn't go past the concrete pad,
Right.
which I don't think 18 feet would even make it, but.
Now that I'm thinking, moving the 2 dispensers on the inside probably would be the cheaper alternative than doing 4 dispensers, because we already own fire suppression for 2 dispensers. We'd just be,
Shifting.
it might even reduce what we need for fire suppression. Well, actually, I see that.
So you're gonna, you can draw this up
Yeah.
and can submit it for pricing, but if you could also submit it to us to just review,
Yeah,
so that while they were
absolutely.
looking at it, we
Because I mean, I'm looking at this, because like this overhead picture versus this, I know these are drafts, but they don't coordinate
Right.
well. Like this shows
We
two.
didn't update the bottom one, and that top one, yeah, it wasn't the final one.
Yeah, I did, when we first saw it, I was like, no, this doesn't really make sense. So that's when I started saying, all right, what's the best way to do this?
And
if-
before we send anything for pricing, I will review it with you guys.
Yeah, and if we do separate the tanks and put the dispensers in the middle, which I think is ideal, would we end up taking the stairs and making 2 sets of stairs on the inside, or would you put them on the outside? Or
Yeah.
does that matter?
Do you actually need 2 sets of stairs? Can you just have a platform that goes over the dispensers and walk along the tanks? What are we accessing on the top of the tanks?
That's a good question.
So there's tank levels, there's submersible pumps, and sensors up there. If you have to go up there for maintenance, or if there's an issue, you almost never have to go up there unless you have an issue with your tanks or having them maintained. We could also look to do tank-mounted ladders just on the outside and get rid of the stairs.
I was gonna say, the fire department has ladders too.
Yeah,
if we need it.
that might be
We-
cheaper than building a set of stairs.
We can talk to the vendor to see where the tanks are in production as well.
I mean, I would like to consider if the stairs are not required, then it just gives us more flexibility, right? And we don't have to further increase the length of that pad
Yep.
and all. So Tyler,
Yeah,
appreciate it if you can look into those details and solve the world's problems within the next 3 days, okay?
I'll be on it when I get back to the office.
I guess the only thing, and I would think on this, because one of the reasons you told me you space the dispensers apart is so multiple vehicles can pull up. So now if they're centralized.
It'd be 1 vehicle on each side.
That's how we
That's
do it
okay.
now.
Do it now.
Okay,
that way.
all right, just,
Yeah.
No, it's good.
No, it's
We're
a
trying
good-
to
it's
talk
a
out
good
every.
point.
I just want to make sure.
No, we currently, you can do 1 gas and 1 diesel at a time, and that's how we've been.
And I'm thinking like during snowstorms, we're gonna have plows returning to the site, we're gonna have plows exiting the site, so now they can kind of get fueled up on.
We could avoid
Either way.
We could avoid the main road side, so.
Right.
So the main road, if we can always just pull out of the way, get fuel on the east side and leave that road open, so we're not blocking anybody's path, even though there's more than enough room on the road. But because of snow removal, if we ever have anything bad, it would.
Is there a regulatory or a required minimum width of the concrete pad that we're going to now add on the easterly side?
There's no regulatory requirement, it's just sized enough to make sure you have the vehicle park on the pad.
Okay.
What's that with?
So we don't need the extra large, we have 10-foot wide trucks, plus we need wiggle room, but, so you're gonna work on that, we're gonna look at this. We need to, though, give the site contractor the authority, the authorization to start working on this as soon as possible, because they're trying to get their heavy machinery off the site.
We've given them, we've basically told them to start.
Yeah.
So they've started lining up putting their ducks in a row to do this. They haven't put shovel to the ground yet. But as of yesterday, I said, you can plan on going forward. I'll call you up as soon as the meeting ends and tell you to stop or go. But they've started to put the wheels into motion, so as to not hold anything up.
I'm sorry, Mr. Donovan?
All right. Then I'll move that we authorize a change order to affect the construction and equipping of a 2-sided fuel island, and to authorize the chairman and the committee of Derek, the fire chief, and the DPW director to agree on the work to be completed, which you've obviously heard here today.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Gordon. Anything to be heard on Kevin's motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Bob, you're muted. Say aye again.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
thank you, sir. Okay,
Would this be
so,
if you change order number 5?
It might get grouped into 5, but
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah.
try to keep track of it.
so Pomeroy's gonna notify the contractor to keep moving forward with this, implementing the easterly access. Tyler through, was it Green Environmental? What I-
Weston and Sampson.
Well, you're Weston Sampson, all right, is gonna work on presenting us with the definitive layout of this double-sided fuel island, two-sided fuel island. Weston and Sampson's gonna continue finalizing the actual site details. I think we're successful, again, kudos to Dandel. My initial concern was we might have to do a short retaining wall on that side, but it looks like we can slope it and use some riprap, so that saves us some money there. Which is, ironically, we're showing in the design development drawings that there was no retaining wall there. Is there anything else that needs to be said or done regarding the fuel island? Any of the gents in the back?
can I just add a little
Please.
color, maybe a little levity to this? I think what the town has proposed here is a very good solution, and thank you for that. I think we obviously have a long way to go here, right? And I think we do really have a good team that's working on this. And I had the privilege of being the go-between in all this, so I've spent a lot of time on this. And when I first got the call from Derek,
Privilege?
yeah,
So we can go this way.
and he brought it up to me right away, and I said, Derek, I got to get back to you. I got to dig into this further. And so my first call was to the design team, and their first inclination was we want to help. We want to figure this out. And you know, at one point when I was having a conversation with the design team, you know, they were shocked just as well as we don't understand why they think that. And I said, guess what? They're on the other side of the table having the exact thoughts of how can they think that. So for whatever reason, the expectations, you know, didn't line up, and that's unfortunate. This does happen in construction. I'm glad we are, you know, able, you know, to come to a resolution here. I think that's the best part of this all. I think going forward, you know, Weston and Sampson will probably add a line to their programming page that says one-sided versus two, and you know, you have that conversation. I think that's the in my mind, from what I've been able to see, because it really did change a number of times, and I don't even think, you know, I'm speaking for the design team, but I think it's very difficult for you guys to answer when it changed, because in your mind it was one way, so it technically didn't change in your mind, other than somehow it popped up on the plan as two. So, you know, I know that's kind of a difficult thing to answer, and I asked you to try to tell me where that happened, and you really couldn't do that, but not for the wrong reasons, I feel. So, you know, I'm glad we're working this out, and you know, like I said, in the future, I think it just has to, you know, if this comes up, hey, this is what it's going to look like. You know, I know we all looked at 100 different plans, and especially when the project went from the bigger project to the smaller project, there was so much different coordination and plans we were looking at. So I feel that's kind of probably where the disconnect happened when that was going on, because we were trying to make the building squeeze, so on and so forth. But I appreciate the town's stance on this. Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it, Taylor, appreciate you being the Switzerland.
Yeah, I just think, I kind of think I've been going through the plans, and I know we're gonna eventually have a sit down and kind of go through a lot of the things that might have been kind of adjusted or changed. But is it, the only thing I can think of is after we've like finished our DD and we agreed on some floor plans and layouts and stuff, it then goes to the engineers and they kind of make some modifications or adjustments. When that happens, when that if there are any of those changes, I just want to make sure that any of that stuff comes back so we can see any of those adjustments or changes. I've noticed it on some of the steel in the plans, but I haven't completely finished what I've done. And it is what it is at this point. Nothing is critical, but it's still, there are some changes that I've picked up on so far, and I'm still not done because it's a lot.
So I think we all have to kind of understand, like, it's a very fluid process.
Yeah.
Right? You know, specific to products and information that's distributed and provided. I don't want to say it always changes, but the contractor comes on board and we get different stuff, you know, different products. Sometimes they come up with solutions that either will, you know, help with their schedule, help their cost, and we have to validate it. You know, so there are subtle changes throughout the whole construction process. Any large change, you know, clearly this was a change, you know, of discussion. You know, we have conversations like this.
Yep.
To be perfectly honest, like if there's like a 1-inch shift,
Yeah.
we're not having that conversation, you know, because there are tolerances in construction.
No,
steel is 1 to
that's
2
really,
inches and stuff
that's
like that. So,
understandable, yeah.
you know, and I think I've been working with you guys for 6 years now. I mean, we've had a lot of meetings. I understand we've had a lot of dialogue. We've had a lot of meetings, and I think, you know, the model of the graphics, you know, it never is 100%. And I'll take the heat and the blame on that piece of it because we did that distribution of the aerials and whatnot. The initial kind of exciting rendering, if you will, to get to the town for town voting was, you know, it was just kind of like a down and dirty version. Unfortunately, that stuck throughout the process, and that's where we are today. Because it's costly for us to do those updates and whatnot. So like, we were focused on, you know, the construction. You know, yes, site work's part of it too. We're not asking Elaine and the Weston Sampson team to build all these site models. I mean, they have it in 2D and whatnot, or 3D, but it's not for graphic reasons. Yep. So again, I'm not trying to rehash all that, but you know, like I said, we'll take the heat on that for not making that clear to this group that that's what was happening. So, but no, any sort of substantial change that would modify your program, your operations, products, will come to you. Because you know, we have the basic design, but then things are altered.
Yeah, I just thank you, and I want to reiterate what Derek just said, because when I was asked to join this committee, I balked, because even though this is like my 4th building committee, I was wondering, I'm like, how the hell are you going to build 2 buildings for $38.5 million? Other towns are building 1 building for $50 million. And we have tried to figure a way, we're on the route to actually get it done. And if we get this done, this is going to be, I think, one of the biggest success stories, frankly. Even though no one likes to pay for it, I understand, I'm a taxpayer too. We are trying to squeeze every penny out of every dollar. So to that, if there is changes that come up, there is no such thing as perfect plans, whether it's a house plan or a fire station plan or just a site plan. We do need to know about any sort of things that affect the budget. And hopefully there might be some that are positively affecting the budget, we'll see. Saying that, we do have a really tight contingency now. We do have some line items where we're carrying a little extra cushion right now, like we mentioned North School. You know, we might not spend that whole $200,000, so we might be able to shift $50,000 into our contingency later once we know those numbers, something like that. So it's always going to be fluid. We're always going to be looking to kind of use our money wisely. But I also need to just say, like, there may be a time where we have to suddenly look and say, listen, we're going to have to delete something or use some cost engineering here to save some money to finish this project. And as the project moves forward, we have less and less options, because once they buy the doors, we can't say we want to change the doors. You know, it's going to cost money. So we just need to keep our eye on it and kind of try to be ahead of the game as much as we can. I hope we don't have to change a thing and we build everything as we've designed. But I just want to put that caveat out there that if we do expect to get change orders from some of the different subcontractors and all, that's part of the game. But we have money set aside for that. We hope that we'll carry it forward. But it is tight. So we'll all work together and try to keep that communication back and forth. so that we can all consider this hopefully to be a success story at the end of it all.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something, Chief?
Yeah, I just wanted to double down on what Derek had said a little bit, and I think this, more than anything, opened my eyes that how diligent we have to be with it. So that if you can communicate any changes to us, that, you know, we can get on board, but it's not gonna be perfect, we understand that, and it's like anything else, you know, you do the best you can, but it's never gonna be perfect. But to what Sean said at the beginning of the meeting, when he said the stuff that was found out in the DPW had nothing to do with John and his crew, we're suffering from the sins of our forefathers. It's the same thing. I can only speak for myself that I feel an incredible responsibility that this building's gonna be around long after I'm retired, dead and buried. We wanna make every effort to try to get it as specific as we can, because that's on us, and it's our responsibility to the taxpayers and to what we're doing. So we wanna be as meticulous as we can, and you guys have probably forgotten more about this stuff than I would ever know. I'm learning as I go, like Sean said, I've learned more about sand than I ever want to the rest of my life. But if it's communicated as best you can, the small things you can't, that's what you guys are. But the other things that we can get communicated to us, we can be helpful, and we want to be helpful in that area too, and as we go. So, but I'm glad we're heading forward.
I think, you know, I'm not gonna drag this out any longer, but the plans as they stand now, there's no reason or need to change the plans as they stand now. That's the bid set. If something comes up that's gonna shift something or change something, absolutely, the first person to find out is the user. So, you know, that's normal process. I think, you know, what Sean was saying is change orders are typical. You know, you're designing things, everything all the way down from what screw they're using on the sheetrock up to, you know, the steel. So it's a very complicated process, obviously, but I think there's a good team in place to follow those things. But absolutely, if for whatever reason, because of a dimension, you know, something gets shifted, we'll let you know. Hey, this space is going to change a little. It's going to look a little different. That's normal for us.
Bob, unless you have something to offer, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn so Tyler can get to work on our fuel station design and these guys can kind of get to work on moving forward with the two-sided island. Anything, Bob?
I have a question for the design team regarding commissioning,
Oh, yeah.
and whether or not it's something that we should strongly consider.
Will you explain what commissioning is?
So there's various types of commissioning. So there's a commissioning where you have a third party that gets involved at the beginning of the project and oversees the design and so forth, and makes comments and passes it along to the design team. We're beyond that stage right now. And then there's a commissioning agent that's involved with the startup, running through all the sequence of operations, reviewing shop drawings, and making sure that what's being submitted meets the design intent. So I think that's where we are at this particular stage, and I know that Pomeroy Associates is involved in being our eyes and ears as our project manager on the project. So just that's just a question that I want to bring up and get the thoughts of the design team on whether or not we should have a commissioning agent.
Right. Yeah. I mean, right now there's no budget line item for commissioning.
There was,
That's correct.
There was, yeah. So that was pulled out when we had to squeeze to get the building built. But that doesn't mean we can still get quotes from commissioning agents and provide those. But I don't know if you were going to say anything else.
Yeah, no, I mean, the contractor does own their own commissioning, you know, it's not necessarily tied, it's tied to the design, but there's no checks and balances with the owner's commissioning agent. So, there's different tiers that can be done, like Taylor just said. I mean, we don't currently have one at a third party. You know, with these specific systems, I mean, once they get online, our engineers can review via virtual the building management systems to kind of just check and see if things are functioning well. But clearly, it's not the full checks and balances from a third party.
And as I understand it, it's kind of twofold, right? When the buildings are done, and the heating and air conditioning system's in, and the internet system's in, and the sound system's in, and the security system's in, yes, everything gets tested, and there's also some training for the employees who are using the building, how to change the temperature, how to send off the alarms, alarm the building, all the different things, because there's a lot of technology, especially in the fire department building, but also in the DPW. So you're training the employees, but you're also testing the systems to make sure they're working accurately, that there are no leaks, there's no, everything's connected properly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There is a small level of that required in the contract from each of the subcontractors, right? And what Bob's talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, is like a third party that we'd hired to come in and kind of follow that, but add to that, make sure our employees can use. Like, we had issues here in the town hall about adjusting the air conditioning because of, so many rooms in so many places. And there isn't the town doesn't have the money to afford to hire someone that runs the town buildings. So we leave it to the employees. The chief designates someone that, Derek, you're in charge of the heating and air conditioning system, good luck to you. So in round numbers, what would be the cost? I'm not suggesting we put the money aside right now, but in round numbers, what would the typical cost to hire a commissioning agent be?
If you did just HVAC, which is probably what we would recommend here, you don't really need somebody to commission the lighting system or your plumbing fixtures, right? So if you just did HVAC, probably somewhere 30 to 45,000.
Okay. Bob, do you have any thoughts, comments, criticisms?
I think it would be a good idea, is if it would be to get some quotes. Then we can always entertain it.
And are you okay with limiting it to HVAC?
Yeah, I think that, the other major pieces of equipment are gonna be the domestic water system and the generators and so forth, along with the transfer switches, but we should be able to get support from the manufacturer's reps on the startup of those items.
Okay. So do you want to make a motion to request that Taylor get some, proposals
Commissioning for proposals, yeah.
for the HVAC systems? Is that your motion, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Derek seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
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 It's 5-0. Okay. Anything else to be heard on the matter before Kevin makes a motion?
I move we adjourn subject to call of the chair.
He makes a motion to adjourn the subject to the call of the chair. Seconded by Derek. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for your time.